All right, good afternoon. My name is Dylan. I am a real estate agent in Asheville, North Carolina. I started the little humble AI and ChatGPT mastermind for real estate group on Facebook. I also earlier this year launched nerdyagents.com, all geared towards agents who want to learn more about how to use AI to leverage themselves in their real estate business a little bit more, save a little bit of time, maybe close a few more deals. Um, so today we're going to talk about ChatGPT for real estate. We're going to focus exclusively on ways that you can use ChatGPT to uh, do the everyday tasks in real estate. There's a lot of hype out there right now about AI tools, and there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with AI. But I found that sometimes in the hype, we get a little bit lost. There's a lot of tools coming out every day. So what I want to use this, I guess we have 59 minutes left. I want to use the rest of our time together today to kind of brainstorm, take a look at some use cases that have been successful for other agents in terms of chat GPT in real estate, and really just have a conversation. This is not a like a presentation or anything. Um, would love to know, okay, where you guys are from, how experienced you are with chat GPT, what you're using it for already. I've added a little poll here. I think that let's see what the give people a couple more minutes to pop in here. It's 12:02. Um, just to kind of get an idea of what the comfort level is with ChatGPT. Um, Hi Sean, hi Phil, hey Troy, good to see you again. Hi Jennifer. You understand the basics. Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, the thing with ChatGPT and AI is that there's no such thing as an expert in this yet. This is such a new technology. We're all learning at the same time together the different ways that this is impacting the real estate profession, the way it's impacting our everyday lives. And as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I really want to focus in on the practical use cases for AI in real estate. So we're going to do that today using ChatGPT, and I'm going to walk through the interface, kind of what it looks like, how to use it for those of you that have not yet used it. Um, to get ChatGPT, you just go to chat.openai.com. I just put that in the chat box, the meeting chat. It's free. ChatGPT is free. And right now, if you have a free account with ChatGPT, you have access to something called GPT 3.5 Turbo. That's the model or the engine that runs the AI chatbot that is ChatGPT. And I'm going to kind of explain what's on the screen here in a second. Um, I want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable getting started. And sometimes getting started is the hardest part. Everybody that's joined the Facebook group today, like we started this Facebook group about a year ago, a little less than a year ago. And if you've heard me talk before, you've heard the story, but I started the Facebook group just with me and like 25, maybe 30 other nerds that wanted to figure out how to use ChatGPT and AI tools in their real estate business. And then a bunch of people joined. It became a party. It became great. And people from all over the world. It was really incredible to see. And still today, we have new people joining every day, which just reflects a collective interest among agents in our profession about how to use this tech to be more efficient, to close more deals, and to get back time. But I digress. One of the questions that I require as part of membership is what is your biggest question about AI? What's your biggest wonderment? And the overwhelming response among agents, this is over 10, almost 10,000 agents across the world, is how do I get started? And so what became clear to me really quickly is that most agents that were joining the group aren't at the they're not pioneers in the sense that they're AI experts, machine learning experts, and want to know how to use this. And that most agents are like me. They want to know, how do I get started, and what are the steps that I need to take in order to leverage this tech. And so that's what this whole community is about helping each other figure out what are the best use cases for AI. So the mastermind community, you can get access to it. Many of you are already members of the Facebook group. Nerdyagents.com is kind of an extension of that outside of Facebook, where I send out a weekly newsletter with the latest tips, tricks, hacks, prompts, AI and real estate news. This is all changing so quickly, and I found that it was difficult to keep track of what's going on. So I created this newsletter, which is at nerdyagents.com. Also at nerdyagents.com are recordings. I'm going to start putting all the recordings for these courses and these workshops there, as well as I'm going to be publishing articles about use cases for AI and ChatGPT in real estate. So if you're interested in that kind of content, please join. It's free. Stay connected. The second step in terms of getting started, how to get started, is to just create your ChatGPT account. It's free, as I mentioned earlier, and it's an extremely powerful form of leverage for a real estate agent. And I'm going to show you in the next 50 or so minutes the different ways that you could potentially use this tool as leverage in your real estate business. Step 3, I've got this broken down to kind of a 3-step process here. Get connected, get your account, and then start identifying the areas of your business that you need help in, right? So the purpose of what it is that we're doing here today is to solve problems, and create opportunity. And so I found that because it's so overwhelming and there's so much new stuff coming out every day, it's easy to get lost in all of the hype and the newness of it all, and then forget, like, okay, I'm using this tech and these tools for a purpose, right? The focus seems to be on the tech and the tools, and we lose track of what it is we're actually trying to do, which is help people buy and sell. And so to just start to get off the ground with AI and ChatGPT, it's helpful to think about, like, what are the areas of your business that you need the most help with, or that you enjoy the least, and then to work from there, and then to identify the appropriate tool to use. In this case, we're going to talk about ChatGPT. And then this little box here, this step 3, is a loose model, a loose framework for how to think about interacting with ChatGPT, and we'll get into that in a second. I will say that after the group started, the Facebook group, I created something called the Real Estate Prompt Library, which is kind of like a Bible for real estate agents that are interested in using ChatGPT for real estate. And it includes over 200 workflows and models for how to use ChatGPT in a real estate business. And I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. But I started off last summer thinking, like, how can I use AI to help me run my real estate business? And this is just a question that I put out into the universe. I didn't know if it would. Um, and as I started learning it and using it on a daily basis, I became obsessed because I was starting to see the light and all the different ways that it can be used. And again, this is the question that most people have: is how do I get started? And so I identified a list of the activities that I was doing in my real estate business that uh, either I didn't know I needed to do as a real estate agent, and or I was told I needed to have done in order to be a successful real estate agent. And yet I did not get into real estate expecting to have to be an expert in marketing and advertising and communications and HR and contract negotiation. I knew some of it, but not all of it. And so that's something that happens. We get into this business and all of a sudden we hold the title of CEO, CFO, COO. Um, and it's a lot, especially when you start to get busy. And so these are the areas that I focused on, these that are listed on this slide, as well as many others, in terms of identifying places where I think ChatGPT and AI tools can make a difference. And so all of those use cases and workflows are in the prompt library, which I'm going to share with you in a second. This is just another reminder that a lot of the stuff that I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to be putting on nerdyagents.com. And so if you're not already in that, I encourage you to do it. It's free. I'm going to take a peek at the chat here. It's 12:09, so I think most people that planned on being here probably are already here. Hi, Phil. Hi, Jeremy. Dayton, Ohio. Awesome. All right. Los Angeles, LA. Good morning. And Reno. Hi, Chris. Perfect. Well, before we get going, it's 12:10 here, 10 minutes after. What questions or wonderments do you have about ChatGPT and AI? Or what are the areas of your business that if you had leverage for, would enable you to be more efficient or do better or feel better about what it is that you do. I just want to take a moment to pause before I steamroll through what we're going to talk about today to see where everyone's at and what people are interested in using ChatGPT for. Or maybe if none of those questions speak to you, what are some things that you're already using ChatGPT for? And I'm going to take a look at the poll here in a second. I'll just take a second to. I want this to be interactive and as much as possible. I know it's weird via Zoom sometimes to be interactive. Um, so the results from the poll. Let's see if we can share this. Here we go. So most people feel like they're intermediate. They've interacted with it a few times. A couple of you are advanced, and a couple of you are beginners. So I'm going to try to speak to all three of these different types of users today, and hopefully everyone gets a little bit out of this. Let's see. We'd love to know what others use ChatGPT for other than writing listing descriptions. You have the paid version. Awesome. Creating text to Canva forms or Google Docs. Yes, that's great. One of the things that is, you just kind of jogged my memory. Um, I don't know if any of you use buyer or seller intake forms to prepare for buyer or seller consults, but one use case for ChatGPT is to tell ChatGPT who you are, the market that you serve, and ask it to help you come up with the questions that you would include in a buyer intake form or seller intake form. And then you can go to Google Forms and actually create it. It can just help you create your system for onboarding new clients. Chris uses it for marketing, but that's the only thing at the moment. Cool. Okay, so it looks like we have a wide range of use cases here and experience. I'm going to go ahead and see what's next here. Okay. So rather than showing you a still, I'm just going to exit out of this and I'm going to open up ChatGPT here. And we're going to dive into what the platform looks like. And we'll spend a couple of minutes on this for those that are new to ChatGPT. So at this point, you should see my window and it says chat.openai.com. So the first time that you go to chat.openai.com, if you don't already have an account, it's going to prompt you to create an account. And the great thing about ChatGPT is it is accessible via if the only thing that you need is an internet connection. So if you have an internet connection on your computer or your phone, you can access ChatGPT via a web browser on your computer or via the OpenAI app on your phone. And I won't go into the app today, but the app is synced with the browser. It's synced with your desktop version of ChatGPT. So you can flexibly go from interacting with ChatGPT and having a conversation on your computer to continuing that conversation on your phone, which I think is great. And a lot of the times, what I do is I'll start a conversation with ChatGPT on my phone, either in the car or while I'm waiting for clients to arrive at a house. And I'll continue it later on at my computer just because it's a little bit easier to interact with. But this is the home screen. This is the ChatGPT home screen. And for many of you who have interacted with instant messaging, software programs, platforms, this is kind of an intuitive interface. We have a little chat box down here at the bottom where it says message ChatGPT. And then on the home screen, there are some suggested prompts. And these are created by OpenAI. These are just some suggestions on ways that you can interact with ChatGPT. And so I'm just going to click this first one here, suggest fun activities for a family visiting San Francisco. So what happens whenever you click one of those suggested prompts is it sends the prompt to ChatGPT. It says, my family is visiting San Francisco for the first time. Can you create a list of sites we must see and activities we must do? So that is just a sample from ChatGPT to try to, it's a thought starter, right? It's a prompt starter. It's designed to help show you how you can interact with ChatGPT. What happens when you send a prompt to ChatGPT is it will respond with depending on your question, a list, in this case, of sites and activities that someone who's visiting San Francisco might want to do. So I'll just pause here and take a second to explain what's going on underneath the hood. ChatGPT is a piece of technology. It's a very smart computer that has been trained on the entire internet. Okay, it's been taught the internet, books, articles. It has a vast array of knowledge. It takes what you say and understands it, and then it pulls it together. And this is probably the thing that differentiates ChatGPT from the internet is it essentially acts as a virtual assistant, as your second brain, rather than just responding to your question with a list of links like Google does. It sort of draws on its entire knowledge base to provide you a contextually relevant response to your question. So here we have a variety of different activities and things that we can do. And one of the neat things about ChatGPT is within this conversation, you can ask for clarification on things. So you can say, can you please expand on item one? And item one, it knows item one is the Golden Gate Bridge piece of information that it shared with us. And then it goes into providing more details about the Golden Gate Bridge. Okay, so the great thing about ChatGPT is you don't have to be techie to use it. You can use your natural language, the way that you normally speak and write to interact with it. You don't have to know how to code in order to use AI. Okay, so fundamentally, that's the reason why this technology is becoming so pervasive and so widespread, is that it enables you and I, who don't have a background in machine learning, to leverage this powerful technology to make meaningful impacts in our businesses. So let's move on. We have a response here. One of the things that I'll bring your attention to is this left-hand side of the screen. This is where all of the conversations are stored in ChatGPT. So anytime you interact with ChatGPT, you can create a new conversation here, a new chat, by clicking this little pencil and paper, and it will start a fresh conversation. I think of each one of these little conversations on the left-hand side as folders. And within each folder, there are topics. Okay. So this is the conversation that I just had. And if I click it, it will pop back up. So it saves my conversations, and you can even rename them. I suggest doing this because if you start having a lot of conversations with ChatGPT like me, it kind of becomes unwieldy and it's hard to remember where you were having what conversation. So this is the San Fran to-do list, or let's say activity list. And you could even date it 0322. Whoops, it didn't work. 032224. I recommend labeling your conversations as much as possible so that it's easy to keep track of what you've done. You can also share conversations. So you can share links to chats that you've had. If you've had a conversation that you want to share with a friend, or you want to get some feedback on something that you're working on, you can share this conversation, or you can just go ahead and delete it. Now, one of the things that I'll point out is within this conversation, ChatGPT is learning about you. It's learning about the interaction. It's forming a memory of what it is that you're talking about. So if you say in this conversation here, I am only interested in biking and no walking activities. I don't know why you would say that, but maybe you're just interested in ways that you can bike around San Fran. It will revise its list and provide destinations and activities that are specific to what you just said, which is, I just want to bike. One of the things that I want to share next is something that you'll find in your settings. So, regardless of whether you have the free version of ChatGPT or a paid version of ChatGPT, I suggest you set your custom instructions. So this is one of the things that I think that if more people set custom instructions in ChatGPT, the better the output would be. A lot of agents are using ChatGPT for marketing activities, for communications, but they haven't set their custom instructions. So I want to spend, let's say, 5 minutes or so going over custom instructions so that everyone that's here knows that they exist and then knows how to actually work with custom instructions. So I'm going to back up for a second, and please drop. I'm monitoring the chat too. So if something is unclear, or if I'm going too quickly, or you want to go back a couple of minutes, just let me know. So custom instructions are a way to personalize your ChatGPT experience and to give ChatGPT a memory of who you are and who you serve and what you're doing here. So to get to it, you go to your name at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen and click Customize ChatGPT. And there will be this screen that pops up, Customize ChatGPT. And I'm going to click Enable at the bottom left. And this will activate custom instructions. There are two questions that you can answer. And you can just start with this first one here. The first question is, what would you like ChatGPT to know about you to provide better responses? This is where I recommend explaining to ChatGPT that you are a real estate agent, that you work in a certain market, how long you've been licensed, who you serve. This is getting clear about your role and your identity. One thing that I've seen agents do in this section is copy and paste their bio. So it's basically telling ChatGPT. It knows a lot about ChatGPT knows a lot. It knows the history of the internet, the world, a lot of books, magazines, but it doesn't know. It hasn't been trained specifically on you and who you are. Um, yes, I can show you where it is. So if we back up, when you are logged into ChatGPT, it's going to look blank like this. And in the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, click your name, click Customize ChatGPT, and then click Enable for new chats. Okay. So the custom instructions is really important because it gives ChatGPT a working memory of your identity. And that's important because if you're like me, when you first started using ChatGPT and you were asking it for help with brainstorm ideas for uh, uh, content to post on Instagram or brainstorm ideas for blog posts for my blog about Asheville, North Carolina, a lot of the responses are kind of generic. And then when you ask it to actually write the content, it doesn't sound like you. So, one thing that you can do to help with that is to give ChatGPT information about you. And then in the second question, how would you like ChatGPT to respond? That's where you can give ChatGPT information about how you want it to respond syntactically. So a lot of times it uses purple prose and it's a lot of adjectives and it's very flowery. So I said, do not be overly verbose or exclamatory. Do not overstate. Be conversational and casual because that's who I am. That's how I speak with my clients. And then I also added in skip acknowledgement phrases. So I clarified it said start your responses directly without any acknowledgement phrases like sure or others. Just provide the information I'm asking for. We've also added please use simple language, avoid jargon, use real life examples, explain the why and benefit of things, and then write content in a clear way. Um, so before I move on from this, I want to show you some of the questions that, if you answer them, will enable you to create your own set of custom instructions within ChatGPT. So I'm going to share a different screen here in a second. Switch screen shares. So you should all see a little colorful box right now. The boxes just kind of highlight different areas of a real estate agent's business and life that um, contain questions that, if you answer them, could provide helpful information to ChatGPT, and you could include them in your custom instructions. So include personal info, include your name, your title, where you're located, where you work, the name of your officer or team if you're on one, if you have any professional designations, if you're a certified buyer specialists, if you work with military relo, if you have preferred pronouns, you can give some information to ChatGPT on your professional background. So, how many years of experience you have? What's your primary focus? Like, what's your niche? Who do you serve? Um, you can also include any unique skills or qualifications that set you apart. So again, this is just thought starters, memory joggers to help you think about like what makes you different. And that information in turn can be given to ChatGPT to help customize its responses for you. You can also give it information about your goals and your approach with clients. And this is an interesting fact to include in your custom instructions. Because if you include that your goal is to sell 50 units this year, and then you go into ChatGPT and you ask for help writing a business plan for 2024, then ChatGPT knows that your goal is 50 units and can better serve you in reaching that goal and helping you craft a business plan. So that's one quick example of how detail and custom instructions can improve the quality of the responses. So if you want to, you can either take a picture of this or I can send these questions to you. These are all questions that if you answer them, you can go into your custom instructions and add them to this first box here. Okay. You can add the answers to the first box and just type normally as you normally would, and it will understand what you're trying to do. So before I move on, one thing that I'll point out is that uh, if you're a buyer's agent, you can craft this to be specific to your role as a buyer's agent. If you're just a listing agent, you can craft this to be, just your set of custom instructions for you as a listing agent. If you have another job or you have another role, like you don't, if you want to turn off the I'm a realtor persona in your chat GPT, you can just disable it. But if you want it to know that you're an agent and you want all the interactions that you have with ChatGPT to reflect that, you can click save. And then every new conversation that you have, for example, it's going to know who you are, what you do, and where you do it. And so that's just a really quick like proof of principle that what we just did worked. Um, no, it does not. So I will send a link out to the questions so that you can uh, answer those questions um, on your own. Um, but yeah, and one of the things that you can do is if you have those questions pulled up, you can literally go into ChatGPT and say, I am writing up my custom instructions. I am going to provide you with a list of answers to a set of questions about my professional um, professional life. Can you please format my answers for use in the custom instructions box? And then you can just go in and using that list that I'll send you, just answer um, the questions. And then just like this. Okay. My experience is that the more detailed you are, the better the result you are. So some people are a little bit weird about sharing with ChatGPT or sharing with OpenAI, and that's totally understandable. So uh, use your judgment, and provide the level of detail that you're comfortable providing, and then maybe toy with experimenting with providing more information that you don't feel like is sensitive, um, and see what the result is and the impact is. I will point out that, and just to kind of give you a motivating example of why you would want to do this, we had a class last week where we created 100 Instagram posts with ChatGPT in less than an hour. And the entire purpose of doing this was to show how we can use ChatGPT with Canva as leverage for creating brand specific content for a real estate business in a very efficient way. And this was all improved and made better by having custom instructions set that told ChatGPT who we were, the market that we served, and what we were trying to do. So custom instructions can just help give ChatGPT a memory of who you are so that it's not just responding generically. Like if you use a prompt in ChatGPT and you don't have custom instruction set, then it's going to provide a generic response. It's going to provide the response that it would give any other agent. Um, so that's custom instructions. Do we have any? Any questions about custom instructions? Does everybody feel like after this, they could go do their own custom instructions? Because I think this is probably one of the more important ChatGPT 101 type things that one could do to really help you get started. Do I need to go back and kind of go over anything? Oh, wait a second, see if people are good. Awesome. Perfect. All right. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So the next thing that I want to do is perfect. Okay, John. Sounds good. Yeah, yeah, and it's something to play with. My custom instructions change over time depending on what I want to do. Like here, they're not very specific. I will point out that you have a max of 1,500 characters. So if you you can go to town. You can write a whole bunch, and then let's say you have something written and it doesn't fit in here. One of the cool things that you can do is you can say, please reduce this paragraph. Maybe this is your custom instructions to 1,500 characters or less, and then paste in what you were writing, and the output of that will be your custom instruction revised by ChatGPT. Then you can copy and paste that and put it in, and it'll fit the requirements, right? So this is some of the ways that we can use ChatGPT to help us. You're very welcome, Jennifer. I think it's a really good place to start. So what I want to do next is I've got this list of 32 tips to kind of crush it with ChatGPT, and I just use this as like a reminder of things that you can do in order to make your experience better. So I'm going to provide a link to this in the chat so that you all have um, this document. This is, I don't know if you've used Notion before. It's like a note-taking app, but I think it's a really nice way to share notes with people. So please let me know if that works for you. But one of the things that you can do is the first tip here is to assign roles to ChatGPT to give it different personalities. So depending on what your goal is, and remember we started with the the real motivating use case for ChatGPT is you need to start with a problem. Like you need to start with I have a pain point or I need help with something. Um, so you can start with your problem and then tell ChatGPT to adopt the role of, if you're working on a real estate activity, an expert in marketing. And you can also say adopt the role of a buyer looking for a home, adopt the role of a seller who's selling a home. If you're trying to engage with ChatGPT in a certain way, sometimes it's helpful to tell it to adopt the role of a certain personality. Perfect, it worked. Okay. Um, so if I'm trying to use ChatGPT to do something like create a content calendar for a real estate business, we'll go ahead and go into prompts and I'll show you one example. Then we want it to adopt the role of a marketing expert. And let's do IG. Here we go. So this is an example prompt. If you're out of inspiration for content ideas and you want ChatGPT to help you, here's an example prompt that you could use that gives ChatGPT a role. It tells it to adopt the role, act as a social media content manager. I'm a real estate agent. I post on Instagram. I want to post 5 times per week. I would like you to help me create a 30-day content calendar for the entire month of, let's say, it's March. So let's do April 2024. And this is the key part of this prompt that I think without it kind of decreases the quality, and with it really changes it completely. I would like you to ask me questions about my brand and business until you feel like you have enough information to make the content calendar. Okay. The next sentence is please output the results in a table format. And column 1 should be date, column 2 should be caption, column 3 can be hashtags, column 4 can be a photo idea relevant to the caption, and column 5 could be a detailed prompt for an image generator. I'm going to take out that last bit just because it's kind of overkill. But I'm going to step back for a second. Okay, we've gone from literally creating our ChatGPT account to turning ChatGPT into a virtual assistant who's going to help us with creating content for social media. And because we've set our custom instructions, it's going to know a whole heck of a lot more about us and the types of content that we want to create because it knows where we live and what our role is. I saw a comment in the chat. Let me see what. Yes, I can, Rusty. Okay, so I'm going to click send. And here we have a table for April 2024, and it did okay. It actually didn't do exactly what I said. If you were paying attention, if it was paying attention, it probably would have done something differently. But it ignored some of my things here. So sometimes ChatGPT has a mind of its own. It doesn't listen to everything. What I found is that sometimes longer prompts aren't necessarily better. Sometimes it's better to break up prompts that are a little bit more detailed into step by step uh, processes to chain prompts together. So let's try this again. I'm going to start by saying, act as my social media content manager. I'm a real estate agent. I post on Instagram. I want to post 5 times per week. I would like you to help me create a 30-day content calendar for the entire month of April 2024. I would like you to ask me questions about my brand and business until you feel like you have enough information to make the content calendar. Can you begin by asking me questions? Okay, so one of the cool things that I like doing when I'm having trouble actually figuring out how to use ChatGPT, sometimes I say, "Can you just ask me questions to help me understand what I'm trying to do?" In this case, I started by asking ChatGPT to collect information about me. This is kind of analogous to how you would interact with a marketing company, social media marketing company, if you were hiring them. So here we're basically we're hiring ChatGPT to help us create content. And in order for it to do that, we need to give it information about who we are and what we do. Now, this is similar to what you would put in your custom instructions, but since there's a character limit to custom instructions, sometimes it's helpful to, within the conversation, ask ChatGPT to collect more information from you. So this is like an intake form that a social media company might have whenever it's onboarding a new client. And here we can answer these questions directly in the chat. So what sets you apart from other real estate agents in your area? Maybe it's that I have. I think that one thing we could do here is that I am a certified luxury specialist. Okay. So let's say that's what sets me apart. And do I specialize in a particular type of property? Let's do luxury condo homes and townhomes. So here we're just answering questions for ChatGPT to give it an idea of who we are and who we're trying to serve so that it can help us create targeted content that's highly relevant to our audience. What are the primary demographics of your target audience? We'll do second home and luxury home buyers. 4, are there any specific neighborhoods or areas you focus on? I'm just going to say all of Asheville, North Carolina. 5, do you have any special certifications? Yes, see above. 6, how do you approach customer service and client satisfaction? I will say by providing um, unreasonable hospitality and care. 7, do you have any partnerships or collaborations? Yes, with luxury home stagers. 8, what are your core values as a real estate agent? Say authenticity, um, white glove service, personalized care, and attention. 9, are there any upcoming events or holidays in April that you want to incorporate in your content? Maybe on April 12th through 14th, there is a luxury home tour in Asheville. North Carolina. And then 10, do you have any ongoing promotions or special offers? No. So I'm going to provide this information to ChatGPT, and it's going to start incorporating everything that I included into captions, hashtags, and then it's giving photo recommendations. So this really takes some of the think out of how to create the content calendar. Now, if you're reading this carefully, you have to decide if this is using the voice of your brand or not. Okay, and this is where combining the human element with the AI is really important. For some people, just copying and pasting these captions and hashtags is not going to work. It's not going to be effective and it's not going to speak to the target audience. Sometimes it will. So I think that in this specific case, if I adjusted my custom instructions, I would get results that would be a little bit more relevant. One of the problems that I see here is that I need content for every day of April 2024. Please revise the calendar. Okay. So now we have content for every day. And I would say, just with this specific use case, have fun with it. You can spend an afternoon just kind of tweaking the way that you interact with ChatGPT. As you can see here, it's taken a couple of different, we have our seed prompt, right? The initial prompt. It's taken a couple of different iterations and revisions to get to what we need, which is an everyday content calendar. And it stopped at April 16th. So I would just say you stopped at April 16th. Please keep going. And it will keep going. And ChatGPT is really smart. It can deal with misspellings, it can deal with your humanness. So don't be afraid of using it and messing up and typing in something that sounds weird, doesn't sound right. Um, yes, the prompt for the qualifying questions. Let's go back up. So I asked, I would like you to ask me questions about my brand and business until you feel like you have enough information to make the content calendar. Can you begin by asking me questions? I love turning the tables on ChatGPT and saying, I don't really know what questions you need to know in order to craft a compelling content calendar for my business. So can you ask me questions and I'll answer them to the best of my ability. Now, I will say Dylan's little like short, terse responses to these questions. You spend time on the responses to the questions, and really think carefully. One of the things that I say is if you're speaking to everyone, you're probably speaking to no one. So getting clear on your value proposition, your target audience is really important here. And ChatGPT can kind of help with that by asking these different questions. It's a great thought starter in helping agents think about, okay, who am I really trying to speak to here? And who is my ideal client? Maybe you don't know who your ideal audience is, but you know who you would rather work with. And so you can describe that avatar of those buyers or those sellers in these responses, and ChatGPT can help you come up with content. Another thing that I'm going to show you really quickly here is within this library that I've created, there is a section called, let's go to hyper local. This is kind of a roundabout way of explaining what I'm going to share with you, but I've created a set of essentially buyer personas or buyer avatars. So I have prompts that are specific to architecture admirers, like targeting clients that love architecture, targeting clients that love art, they're art aficionados, targeting clients that have a strong interest in literature or history or nature or outdoor recreation, or targeting clients that love food. So I've created prompts that help you connect with a specific type of person. And for example, let me show you one of these prompts here. So let's go up to architecture admirers. So the specific purpose of this prompt is to create an itinerary for a client that is an architecture lover that's visiting a town and needs help knowing what to do, where to go, what to see. And the prompt is, please create a detailed itinerary tailored for architecture lovers visiting a destination. Include recommendations for significant architectural landmarks, iconic buildings, architectural tours, and any unique architectural experiences available in the area. Consider the specific interests of architecture enthusiasts, such as modern architecture, historic buildings, local architecture styles, and any notable architects associated with the destination. Okay, and then the itinerary should span a duration and take into account any relevant logistical considerations such as transportation options, opening hours of architecture. So, okay, so that's a mouthful, right? Um, Embedded in that prompt is a buyer persona. That's a specific type of buyer. Maybe you focus on equestrian properties. Maybe you focus on the LGBTQ community, but clearly defining that person is, and then using that in your prompts with ChatGPT. So, for example, maybe I want to speak to 5 of these different personas. Maybe I want to speak to equestrian lovers, horse lovers, art aficionados, architecture admirers, and craft beer enthusiasts. Maybe that's the persona of the people that I'm trying to connect with. Um, then you can tell ChatGPT, this is my target audience. Help me create a content calendar that connects with those people. So one of the members of our Facebook group, Kristen Carter, has done this, and I'm going to show you the prompt that she used to create 100 video ideas in less than a couple of minutes. One of the things that she did in order to create content to help with lead gen, to help with the overwhelm of not knowing what kind of content to post, is she created this prompt called the 100 video ideas prompt. And it says, I'm going to create a spreadsheet of video topic ideas and I'd like your help. Using my custom instructions for what you know about me. So she had her custom instruction set. Please help me generate 100 video topics with just the titles listed. I'll fill in the actual content later. My target audience is split into 5, so I'd like 20 topics per audience. Her target audience consists, she's an agent on a team. And so her audience consists of buyers, sellers. She wants to include local community info, personalized personal topics, and agent to agent connections. This is her audience and her kind of silos, who she's trying to reach, and the types of content she wants to produce. And the output is literally, because she had her custom instruction set, it provided an insanely hyper local, relevant, brand specific set of pieces of content for each one of these segments that she could then go and use on Instagram. And so she did a 100-day challenge where she posted videos every day for 100 days using the spreadsheet that ChatGPT generated for her from this prompt. So I kind of went on a tangent there, but I think that all of this is really to say that I think one real use case for ChatGPT is defining your value proposition. Let's see, Russ. Does ChatGPT 4 provide access to Dolly? Absolutely. Yeah. Remind me before, like in 7 minutes, to come back to that. I want to show you one more thing before we get into Dolly. And Dolly is, we're going deep here rather than broadly. There's so much more in ChatGPT that we're not talking about. So I want to caveat this little workshop here. Let me go back to this other slide. Something that I know is on all of our minds is the headlines that we can't really get away from. And I'm not going to get into this other than to say, is there any better time to learn a new tool like AI, ChatGPT, that can help you more clearly define your value proposition? And I don't think that there is a more perfect time to really lean into this technology to help you establish your target audience and to be laser focused on them. These are 5 questions that I think that if you spend this weekend really thinking about these things, a lot of the hype and the anxiety around what is kind of coming and what the confusion and the uncertainty potentially around it all will kind of maybe not go away, but will be lessened. Um, these are very personal questions that only you can really think about, um, given a little bit of time and space to do so. And I think ChatGPT, because it's this kind of anonymous sort of online tool, um, it's a safe space to do it. So, one question that I have for you is if you were more clear on your personal mission statement, your professional mission statement, your superpower, who you serve, would that be helpful to you in your business? And would it help you be more comfortable sitting down at a buyer consult or a seller consult? In my experience, it has been knowing who I serve has immensely changed the way that I look at myself and the way that I conduct business. Knowing my audience has changed my relationship to the business as well. So this is a prompt that I would love. I don't really want to give people homework. That sounds weird, but like if you use this prompt, uh, I think that you'll one be amazed at the intuitiveness of ChatGPT and this AI tool in understanding who you are and what you're trying to do in your business. And two, you're going to be more confident because you're going to have the vocabulary to speak about your business in a way that maybe you didn't have before. So, this is the prompt. I'm working on my personal mission statement, my professional mission statement, my personal vision, and my professional vision, and also my superpower. Here are things I know about myself. Can you help me gain clarity? So in this second section here of this prompt is where you can, it's a free form section. Write a little bit about who you are, the way you see yourself, your likes, your dislikes, your personality, your preferences, um, the things that you love about real estate, the things that you hate about real estate. Be brutally honest. It's not going to be used against you anyway. And this is all private in ChatGPT. Like they're not going to share this with anyone. And then the next part of the prompt is please ask me any questions you need to know before proceeding with the next step. And the next step is for ChatGPT to help you establish your personal mission statement and values, your professional mission statement and values, and then your superpower. And I've seen this done a couple of different ways whenever I've shared this prompt with people. One of the ways that if you can also do this is to ask your friends and your colleagues, maybe text one or two of your closest friends and say, "Hey, could you list like two things that are my strengths or two things that are my weaknesses, maybe both?" And just text it back to me, like the way you see me, and include that in this prompt. And in a way, it's kind of like this third party verification validation of who you are. And it can just really help the output of this prompt be more relevant to you and your brand. So, why would you do this? Why would you want to do this? There's a lot of reasons why, other than the immense clarity that you can get from it. But you can follow up that prompt, the output, with this. You can use the final output from ChatGPT alongside a prompt that will ask ChatGPT to define your top 3 lead gen strategies. So I know it's March 22nd and a lot of us already business plan for the year. Maybe some of those lead gen strategies are going well. Maybe some of them aren't. Maybe some need to be uh, trimmed, pruned. If you're one of those agents who not everything is going exactly as planned and you maybe want a little bit of like a memory jog, you want some help coming up with a creative solution, a new lead gen strategy, use this prompt. Great. Now, using the superpower and the mission statements and values above as support, please recommend with supporting details what my top 3 real estate lead gen strategies ought to be. And the reason why this works is because ChatGPT knows all of the lead gen strategies that have been published about. There's thousands of resources on the internet, on websites. It's been taught that all of Gary Keller's MREA Red Book. It's been taught Barbara Corcoran, Gary V. It's been all of these gurus in real estate have written about how to lead gen and what I'm. There's lists of top 100 ways to lead gen. ChatGPT knows it all. Now, knowing who you are your strengths, your weaknesses, your superpower, we're asking ChatGPT to pick, using its artificial intelligence, its machine learning algorithms, what it thinks would be some good lead gen strategies for you to try. Maybe some of them are ones that you've already tried. Maybe some of them are new ones that you can explore. After that, you can really go anywhere. I mean, you can ask it for help in implementing them. You can follow up with this prompt in that same conversation with, okay, like, can you please give me a step by step on how I can uh, start a YouTube channel? If for some reason it comes out with one of your top 3 lead gen strategies should be creating a Facebook group or Facebook community or building community, you can ask it for help in a step-by-step specific detailed way on how to actually execute that thing. Um, so I think that just to kind of wrap it up, it's 12:56, and I'm going to hit Dolly right before we finish. Um, this is talking about using AI to work on your business. A lot of people are using AI to write listing descriptions, to generate content for Instagram, and to create blog posts, do SEO. All of that is fantastic. I do all of that as well. But I think one of the untapped ways to use ChatGPT, especially in this environment that we're in, where it seems like a lot's changing, is to work on your business and to have a confidant in a way, a partner in crime, an assistant that's AI to help you do it. So that's that. I will send everyone these prompts and workflows so that you know how to actually do it. And then we can, anytime in the Facebook group, please post if you need help. Like we can chat it out or Zoom it out or whatever. Um, I'm going to share with you one more thing before we leave. Well, I'll stay and answer questions, by the way, too. I'm not just going to disappear. Um, Connell asked about the Dolly thing. So some of you may not know what Dolly is, and that's okay. If you have GPT-4, if you pay for the paid version of ChatGPT, there is a functionality of this that you probably can't tell because it's kind of hidden, but it can generate images from text. And I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. So I have this guide on how to crush it with Dolly 3 using ChatGPT for a real estate agent, and I just posted the link in here in the chat. This guide walks through how to use Dolly 3 to create images. So you can use Dolly 3 just by interacting with this chatbot here. So I'm going to show you exactly how. So this is a prompt. Um, I'm going to use create a photorealistic image of a for sale sign in front of a beautiful home. Okay. One of the use cases of using the paid version of ChatGPT for real estate is you can create your own custom stock images. And I'm going to paste this prompt in here. And I'm going to wait for it to create the image. While it's doing that, hopefully that won't mess it up. I'm going to show you some of these other images that I've created. So I've used Dolly 3 to create social media icons. And this is how insane this is. So if you set your custom instructions and you tell ChatGPT what your branding is like, the tone, the style, the voice, the feeling, the colors of your brand, it can create collateral for your real estate business. This is $20 a month. Now, the pricing is less important than the impact of this on your business, right? Like if you are now in the driver's seat, you now have complete control over the look and feel of your business using AI in ways that you didn't have before. Previously, you needed a huge marketing budget and a marketing team to come up with collateral for real estate business, like iconography and logos. And this is one example of an icon set that I created for the prompt that I used was create an icon set for my real estate brand. I want it to feel fun, organic, and look hand drawn. I specialize in farms, horse properties, land, and homesteads. And it came up, it drew these images. That's wild. As an individual agent, to have the power over your brand at this level is unheard of. I've also asked ChatGPT to create newsletter headers. So this is its let's see if I have the prompt here. The prompt that I used down here did not create this image. This is kind of an image that I created for an Asheville, North Carolina newsletter. Crazy, right? This is just a little piece of this. Trying to define the look and feel of a brand with an image is hard to do. Like none of us are graphic designers. It can create memes. So This is a meme that I created using DALL-E 3 about multiple offer situations and potentially what would happen if interest rates came down. I thought it was hilarious. And it was incredibly good and relevant. So you can use DALL-E 3 to create content that connects with your audience in ways that were not previously possible, right? Other than by resharing someone else's content or using stock images. You can create neighborhood guide covers with local landmarks specific to your town. So you can design covers for neighborhood guides. You can create logos. You can create invitations or thank you cards. Um, I created a home anniversary card for a client who bought a cabin with me in the mountains of Western North Carolina. Um, you can create coloring books. So this may seem a little bit like silly, but if you have a family that if you're working with a family that has children and you want to make a fun little thing for them to do at a consult, you can create a coloring book using ChatGPT. You can create seasonal pictures. Uh, you can do a whole bunch. So this is just one little quick guide on how you can use ChatGPT, specifically DALL-E 3, to create content for your real estate business. Now, this is changing very quickly, and pretty soon you're going to be able to create B-roll and videos using ChatGPT. They say that later this year they're going to release a tool called Sora, which will enable you to create video from text within ChatGPT. There's already a tool that allows you to do that. Let's go back to our for sale sign. This is the image that it created using that prompt. Um, so looks okay. It looks fine, right? It may not necessarily be something that I would use, but you get the idea. The prompt probably could use some refinement. Um, so we're a little bit past 102, and I want to be respectful. If you had to leave, I'm sure you already left. If you're waiting for permission to leave, feel free to leave. I will follow up via email with everyone with access to all of the links that I dropped in the chat, as well as the prompts that I went over on the screen. And this is really just the start of ChatGPT. And I hope that after an hour of me talking, which I hate that I just talk. I'm sorry that I didn't stop more to see if people had questions. But looking for your Notion URL, 21 tips. Here we go. Oh, I put it in the private message someone on accident. Here we go. There we go. How do you get past all of the misspelling words in DALL-E 3? Amazing question. The way to do that is the following. Let's see. Can you see? What are you guys seeing right now? Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So you can use Canva's Magic Studio. Canva's Magic Studio is the way that you will correct misspellings. You're welcome, Chris. Yeah, thanks for being here. Hopefully, this was helpful. Jennifer, uh, I have a video in here, I think, of how to do that. Let's see. I don't know that I have the video in here, but I'll share the video. Canva's Magic Studio is how you would do it. Let me see if I can pull it up real quick to show you. You're welcome, Kathleen. Thanks for being here. So we're going to have a special class on Canva's Magic Studio because it's so important. The thing that everyone should know, if you're all, I know a lot of us are already using Canva because Canva is such a powerful design tool. But they recently spent almost $400 million designing this Magic Studio, which is a suite of AI powered tools within Canva. And one of those tools that we're going to quickly go to is Magic Grab. I think this is the right one. Let's see here. Yes, it does. It does provide limited access to DALL-E. So Magic Studio, there is a tool in here called text to image, and within Magic Studio. So if you don't pay for DALL-E, if you don't pay for ChatGPT Plus within DALL-E, I mean, sorry, within this is where we're at, guys. There's so many new tools. It's easy to mix them up. Within Canva Pro, as I'm showing here on the screen, you can type in texts like, let me go back and get my prompt for that. Let's use the same prompt that I used to generate this house. You can ask Canva to generate an image for you. So it's going to use the power of DALL-E from OpenAI to do that. And they suck. The reason why is because they're using the old version of DALL-E. They use DALL-E 2. So that's one of the problems. However, in the link that I shared with you guys on crushing it with DALL-E, oh, sorry, I didn't share the crushing it with DALL-E one yet. Let me find it. Here we go. Got it. Okay. So this is the link that you guys were looking for that I thought I posted, but I didn't post. This is going to walk you through some of the different use cases of DALL-E 3 for real estate. And there are also, stop the share. Within that link, there are links to some videos. And I'm going to post, Jennifer, the link to the video on how to correct misspellings with DALL-E, okay? Because I know you asked for that. It's a walkthrough on how to do it. So I won't show it to everyone now, but I will send you the link on how to actually get that done. It is possible to do it using Magic Studio within their platform. So I'm going to post the link. Here you go, Jennifer. You're welcome. I mean, if you have any questions about doing that, just give me a shout. So yeah, there's a lot here that we could spend the rest of the afternoon going through, but I'd rather open it up to questions now. If anyone has questions about specific things that they're working on in their business, or maybe this hour brought up new questions that you have about using AI in your business. I know that many of you have probably seen or heard some of this stuff done before. Hopefully you saw something that you hadn't seen before yet, or at least got an idea for something. The next little workshop that we're going to do is going to focus specifically on you're welcome. Yes, exactly. And we're at just the early stages of it all. It's just beginning. The next workshop that we're going to do, haven't posted the date yet, is going to be on using Canva's AI Magic Studio for real estate. And if you want kind of a sneak peek on the possibilities of using Magic Studio for real estate, then I encourage you to take a look at what we did last week, doing 100 posts in an hour using ChatGPT and Canva. And that's kind of a prelude to using Magic Studio and interacting with that as a tool for real estate business. So with that, thanks for being here on a Friday afternoon, guys, or Friday morning. Troy, the recordings are all going to be posted at nerdyagents.com. So after this, once the recording is done, I will upload it, and then the link will go out in the newsletter as well, so that anyone who wants to go in can take a peek at all the different recordings and the different examples and use cases. I'm trying to start putting things together in more discrete little units and packages, so that if someone's interested in doing the 100 posts in an hour with ChatGPT and Canva, they can just go to this one link and find all the information they need about that, and so on and so forth. So that's what I'm starting to compile at nerdyagents.com. And then we'll also be posting everything in the Facebook group as well. You're welcome, Paul. Nice to meet you. Thanks, Margarita. Great question. Does it know about legal real estate requirements in your areas? So I would say no. I would actually go to the real estate commission website for your state, and I would download state regulations and requirements, rules and regulations. And if you have ChatGPT 4.0, you can upload those documents as reference points for ChatGPT. So if you're doing something that specifically needs to be answered within the context of those pieces of information, it's drawing on the latest rules and regulations. It does know fair housing. So if you are creating content, and I didn't talk about this, if you're using ChatGPT to create content, I recommend reminding ChatGPT to abide by fair housing. So it knows the Fair Housing Act. That's a really good question, by the way. I think that there's a lot more to be explored there with um, giving ChatGPT access to information discreetly, like by uploading the. In my case, I've uploaded the North Carolina Real Estate Commission's state statutes and local rules and regs to ChatGPT whenever I'm trying to do something that is kind of like a local legal thing that I want to make sure like following the rules. I will do that, but there's a lot more to be explored there. Exactly. Yeah, they're different from state to state, province to province, even from one city to the next. Um, and so that's one good use case for ChatGPT is uploading um, local ordinances and even HOA documents and covenants and restrictions to answer buyer questions or even seller questions about what's allowed and what's not allowed. So if you're trying to sell a unit in a big condo building and you don't want to read a 100-page document about the rules and regulations just to answer a question about how many pets are allowed, you can upload the document to ChatGPT and ask it how many pets are allowed or dogs or cats are allowed, and it will give you the answer. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Hope to see you again very soon. Hope you guys have a great Friday and a great weekend. Um, if you have any questions whatsoever about things that you're running into in your business with respect to AI, feel free to reach out. You can reach me at dylan@nerdyagents.com or just find me on Facebook within the Facebook group. If you go to nerdyagents.com and sign up, you're going to get the newsletter that'll come out later today, as well as access to all the recordings and all the information that we talked about. So it was so good to meet you guys and hope you guys learned something new. Um, and until next time, hope you guys have a good one.